There we go. Hi, everybody. This is Nick Burbulis. I'm the editor of Educational Theory. This is another in a series of interviews with authors of papers that have been published in the journal. Today's guest is Andrea Fiore, who wrote a paper called Dewey on Familiarity in Education, Aesthetics, and Art. This paper received the Outstanding Paper Award from the 2023 John Dewey Society meetings. These Outstanding Paper Awards are co-sponsored by John Dewey Society and Ed Theory, and the winning paper is published in the journal. Andrea, I'm really happy to have this paper published in Ed Theory. I've read a lot of papers about John Dewey over the years. I don't think I've ever seen a paper that's focused specifically on the concept of familiarity. So let's start with what you mean by familiarity and why you think this is a really central concept in understanding Dewey's theory.
Okay, first of all, thank you, Nick, and thank you to the organizers of John Dewey Society and the Philosophy of Education Society meeting for this opportunity. I'm very happy and honored for this. I think familiarity in John Dewey is an important topic, and it is not so studied and highlighted by scholarship. Familiarity in Dewey's thought is a disposition, and this disposition allows us to manage, to cope with the reality. It is quite unperceived, not only in Dewey's work, but also in our real and ordinary life. So I found two characteristics in Dewey's notion of familiarity, in Dewey's view of familiarity. The first is familiarity as a recognition. So through familiarity, we can manage our relation with the world. We can recognize familiar things, and we can organize our behaviors in the world, within the world. On the other side, another characteristic of familiarity that is strongly intertwined with the other I mentioned is familiarity as interpretation, because through familiarity Dewey thinks that we can discover something new. So familiarity shows in Dewey's thought this double role. Familiarity is a recognition and interpretation. I think this is these are the two main characters or characteristics of familiarity, and these characteristics are important in our lives too, not only in Deweyan thought.
Yeah, that's very helpful, Andrea. Thank you. So one of the things you set up in the paper is the contrast between the familiar and the unfamiliar, or the unknown, or the strange. And both of these moments have a potential educational moment. Say more about how an encounter with the unfamiliar, or the unknown, or the strange can have an educational benefit.
Yes, it is apparent that education has the the objective of driving students and people in general from the already known to the unknown. In this work, in this main purpose of educational work, the main difficulty, I think, related to the role of familiarity is how to manage the shifting from the familiar to the unfamiliar. So it is important, as Dewey points out, to start from what is familiar and familiar intended as a secure base for students and people in general. In the school and society, Dewey clearly shows that students are to be reassured in some way, and they are to be involved in ordinary and familiar activities, but the teacher here plays a very important role, because is the teacher who has to lead students toward the unfamiliar. From this perspective, the familiar is a repository of already known things. But these already known things are to be defamiliarized in some ways. That is, they are employed in a new meanings, in a new ways, in order to discover novelty in the reality. In this kind of work, teacher acts like an artist, because a teacher has to possess and has to exercise to develop his or her aesthetic sensibility. That is an important quality or characteristic of teaching and of teachers.
Yeah, that's very helpful. So you brought in the concept of art. So one of the things that art can do for us, you say, is to help us to see the unfamiliar or something new in the familiar. So to take the visual arts, we might look at a portrait or a landscape whose subject matter might be familiar to us, but art will often show us that familiar thing in a way that we see something new or different in it. And in your argument, this is part of what art does, is it, as you said, it defamiliarizes the familiar. It makes us see something that we think we knew, but to see it in a new way.
Yes, art plays a key role in this kind of operation. The example I gave in my paper is Cézanne's painting, but it can be applied to all kinds of arts. Actually, art is in its in all its manifestations and all in all its forms, it's the best way, I think, to learn to defamiliarize things and to see the novelty in the ordinary things. There are many kind of artistic practices to do this. For example, the first thing a student can learn when he or she learns to paint or to draw is to see the reality in a geometric way. I don't know if this is the right expression in English, but it's something similar to the art of Picasso or Cézanne. Cézanne is in the history of art an important figure, because he realized the shifting from the representative art, so to speak, to the abstract art. In his late paintings, it is possible to see how the painter realized this defamiliarization of things, of reality. For example, the Mont Saint-Victoire, or the objects, ordinary objects in his atelier in Aix-en-Provence, such as apples or oranges or other things. These things, these ordinary objects, are transformed through the art of painter in other things with a completely new meanings. Sure, this operation requires particular attitudes and dispositions. Not all of us are like Cézanne or like Beethoven or other artists, but it is important to educate aesthetic sensibility to develop our intense and deep relation with the world.
Yeah, I like that very much. Thank you for that. This also can come up in other educational contexts, even outside the arts. I think, for example, of the study of history, this idea of defamiliarization, where you may read about a historical period or a war, or a particular historical figure. And once you actually read about the person or the events and the context, you suddenly take something that you thought you knew or thought you understood, and now also can see it in a completely different way. So this idea of defamiliarization, I think, has educational potential in a lot of different contexts.
Yes, sure. History is another important example, and from this perspective, teaching history is not so different from teaching arts, because actually, when we have to do with the past, with what human beings did in the past, we must to exit somehow from our present and our ordinary life to see something new, something we must reconstruct, because past is past. So we have to make a great effort to imagine, but with a specific method, what the past was, and we have to draw from the past the meaning of what people did in the past, and put it into contact with our present. It is this operation of reconstruction in history is a really interplay between familiar and unfamiliar, between familiarization and defamiliarization, because we have to defamiliarize our present and familiarize with the past. An interesting exercise to introduce students to this operation of reconstruction of the past is to take objects and documents from the past and to put into contact students with these objects, asking all you can imagine to ask to these objects. Obviously, this operation is to be guided from the teacher, and as Dewey teaches us, it cannot be a spontaneous operation. But it is very important, especially to develop in students the importance of what is different from us and from our life.
Yeah, thank you for that, Andrea. There's much more in this very rich paper. I encourage people to read the whole thing. There's a link here with the video.
Thank you.
But you've given a great overview of some of the key concepts in this essay, and also suggested some of the very specific ways in which this can give guidance to teaching. Andrea, thank you for your time. It's a pleasure talking with you. I do encourage people to read the whole paper.
Thank you, Nick. It was a great pleasure for me. Thank you.
Sure.